Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome, Chargers. We're glad to have you back again this week for another great podcast. I can't wait to share our guests with you each and every week because we go out searching for the best. And this week I've got a special guest again because Tom Morris was introduced to me by a friend of mine, and we got to visit over the phone, and I knew the Chargers needed to hear his message. So Tom Morris is a real-world motivator that works as the Senior Director of Athletic Performance at Indiana University. He specializes in strength and conditioning for Olympic and collegiate athletes. He is not only a motivational speaker, he is a motivator that takes time away from his full-time job to share his story to show people that anything is possible. For a large part of Tom's life, he took for granted what a healthy, strong body and mind plays into your everyday life. Growing up as an athlete and being surrounded by sports led Tom to live a physically active and competitive lifestyle. Tom has raced in numerous cycling races, 12, 24, 36, 72-hour adventure races. Wow, that's made me tired already. And triathlons of all distances. After suffering a spinal cord injury in May of 2012, he went from being on top of the world both mentally and physically to being what he refers to as zeroed out. Tom went from racing some of the toughest races on earth to not being able to push a wheelchair more than 5 feet. This life-changing event made him realize how fortunate we are to wake up each and every day, to have the ability to live life without barriers, to have the option to achieve any goal that we want. One of Tom's biggest passions in life is to help others achieve their own goals. He uses his energy, passion for life, and his own personal story with the hope that it can show others that anything in life is attainable if you just start and never give up. Tom, it is great to have you on the Charge Podcast. Welcome, my friend.
Well, I greatly appreciate it. Super excited to be here with you, and this is going to be great.
Well, it is exciting to have you, and you and I have got to visit on the phone, and you kind of shared your story, and I really think this will resonate with our audiences because yours was definitely the spinal cord injury, but we all have those challenges in life, and we have to realize how can we overcome them each and every time, and we have that capability, and it's within ourselves. But before we go there, Tom, if you don't mind, I ask every guest the same question. I have a mantra called CHARGE, create habits around real goals every day. What habit or habits do you think that's led to success in your life?
You know, I have this habit that what I love and what I always do daily is when I'm out in public, when I'm walking down the hallway or through the mall, whatever, the habit that I have is to always have my head held high, never have earphones in, and always be aware and present and say hi to people. You know, that it's so simple, but it's done so much for me in building those relationships because just saying hi to people creates conversation. A lot of those conversations have built into incredible, relationships that have gone on to help me out in this world and be able to help a lot of others out around it. So that habit of just literally keeping your head held high and being aware and being present of the given moment. And it's easy, but it packs a wallop. I'll tell you, it really does wonders.
Yeah, it's easy, but it's hard.
Yes.
Because, of course, the challenge is we get in our own head and we forget to be present. And what a great one. I've heard that only a few times, and it is so true because how much difference we can make when we're present with people. You know, we have, of course, fathers, we have mothers on this podcast. And how many times do you go home? I've got teenagers, my last one is getting ready to head off to college and she's a senior this year. And it's so easy to let them just be enthralled in what they are and you walk in and you're not part of it. But how can you be part of something else? It just really makes a difference. Tom, I think we have to start because as you and I got to know each other a little bit is sharing your story. And we kind of set it up in the bio there because you're used to racing and doing a lot of very athletic athletic things. You're around athletes all the time, Olympic athletes as well as collegiate athletes, but things changed for you. Can you share that story with us and the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I grew up, as that athlete. I got myself involved in college athletics, and then was that strength coach, and wanted to live that life of competing and getting out there and really pushing myself, pushing the boundaries what I was capable of. And then on May 17th of 2012, I was out on this what I call a training ride. I was competing in a big national mountain bike event that weekend, and this was the Thursday before a Saturday race, and it was just a fine tuner. And went around the first lap of a 4-lap set, and second lap built off of that. And then third lap's even faster. And by that fourth lap, I was humming. I mean, I'm feeling it. I'm that excitement. And what I always like to say is it's that freedom that I felt every single time I was on that bike. But then about a quarter mile before I'd end that ride, I'd go around this sharp corner and I'd smash a rock. That rock sent me somersaulting through the air. I could just see the ground coming up as my head is going head over heels, and then impact. I'd strike the ground with the front part of my head, and it would literally feel like it blew up my body. I mean, it turned my body to flames. I'd somersault all the way around, and I'd land flat on the ground, motionless, scared to death to open my eyes. I just kind of laid there. So hung out there for, roughly about 10, 15 seconds just to try and figure out what happened and what's going on. And then all of a sudden, I gained that courage to just open up one eye and then open up another. Found myself laying there looking up at the sky. And then all of a sudden this burn is back in my body and I'm on fire and I'm trying to get off the ground. And I was referred to it. I felt like I was suction cupped to the ground. I mean, like I couldn't move. I just was stuck to it. But I tried and I kept trying to do everything. And it was at the point that I just start patting myself, patting my chest all over the place just to try and make some sense of this, that when my hands got to my chest, my hands felt my chest, but my chest didn't feel my hands. It was the craziest feeling. It was like I was touching something different, something not even there. And, at that point, I didn't know what to do. I mean, I didn't know what to do, but I'm laying stuck to the ground. And I'm just trying to make sense of what happened. But then the next phase that comes into this is, well, how are you going to get out of this? It's like, you're stuck now. What are you going to do? And my mind is scrambling to just figure this out. And then it dawns on me. I got my phone on me in my back pocket. So again, I get this rush of relief, like I'm stuck, but there's hope. Stuck, but there's hope. Make the phone call. So while I'm laying there staring up at the sky, the phone was a picture like a cycling jersey. And, they have those 3 pockets across the back.
Yeah.
That phone sat in that back right side of it. And so I reached behind there to grab that phone, and I start trying to dig at it and trying to pull. And this was the point I realized that it wasn't just my legs that were affected. My hands weren't working at all either. I mean, my hands are squeezing on the phone, trying to do all this, and they won't pull that phone I cannot get it out of that pocket. Gary, I sat there working at this. I mean, 15 minutes of just trying to dig, trying to pull, and I'd take 15 minutes of just recover, like just lay there and try and get myself back, not panic, not freak out. I go 15 minutes again, trying to pull, trying to yell at that point, trying to do anything to get someone to come around. 15 minutes off, just recover. I did this for over 3.5 hours.
Wow.
3.5 hours laying there on the ground, really just stuck to the ground, not knowing what's around the corner. At that 3.5 hour mark, luckily 2 riders came by and they called for help. And then that's when my journey of recovery really started.
Wow. I mean, that 3.5 hours, I'm sure felt like some of those 72-hour races, and just the amount of angst and knowing that you can't do what you want to do to be able to get help.
And I've never been so vulnerable or so hopeless of just laying there. And, those thoughts that come through your head of, Am I ever going to go home again? Am I ever going to get to see my wife again? And all these things are going in there. But then the other side of it is just survival and try and do anything you can to get help to try and get out of this situation. But in that situation, there was just nothing that I could do because I'm laying in those woods. Then it's secluded. It's miles and miles in, and I just didn't know. My breath at that point was starting to shallow. Everything was really, really affected, and it's been the most vulnerable, terrifying experience that I've gone through in my entire life.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think that's key. And I think the thing that we want to really talk about is we all have those challenges. So when you hear Tom's story, as very tragic as it was, I want you to think about there's a triumph behind this. And the thing I want you to think about is sometimes we think our story doesn't matter, but it does. And I think one of the other things I want to set out is how strong our mindset is, because your perseverance in that moment is what saved you. Because if you would have went in shock 3.5 hours later, they wouldn't have found a live body. They would have found someone that was in total shock and that's there. I'm not a big medical doctor. My daughter wants to be one, but I'm not. But I do know enough about that I don't think you'd been around. So tell me there, because you went from there, I'm sure the struggle, and you talked about even being zeroed out in the bio. We talk about that. Where did you go from there in that journey and what treasures did you learn along the way?
So this started this journey off in the hospital. That they fixed the diagnosis was I broke my neck, so C6, C7 vertebrae break. But you really just don't know that point of how impacted you are. What has been taken away? What has been stripped of you? At that point, I was just kind of going through with it. I thought it's going to be a broken leg. I'll rehab this. I'll get everything back, and then I'll be just fine. But it took me 5 days. 5 days of laying in the hospital. I'm surrounded by a lot of people. I'm surrounded by a lot of good people that are giving me motivation, optimism, and the biggest thing is hope. But on that fifth day is when the world kind of came crashing down, because there's a series of different things that went on. But one of the biggest things is that I found out I had lost all independence. I woke up on the fifth day for my first day of rehab, excited. I was excited about moving on. I was excited about this journey. And I know that sounds a bit crazy, but for me it was, what's the next step? How are we going to get better out of this? How are we going to solve this? And what happened on that fifth day was early in the morning, they wheeled in that wheelchair. And I sat there staring at it, excited to get into it. But then I realized that I'm not strong enough to physically get into that wheelchair. Mm. So with help, I got into that chair, and still that didn't put me down. But then I tried to push the chair, and I tried to just propel it a little bit. And I realized I'm not strong enough to push this wheelchair. So with help, I ended up going down to rehab, and I'd spend that whole day in rehab, but it was the revealing nature of rehab that was so challenging. I couldn't get dressed. Combing my hair was like running a marathon at this point. And I just kept finding out more things that I couldn't do. And I came back to the bedroom that night, to the hospital bed. And that's when I was greeted by my physician, Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee was this, incredible, I always say she was this incredible doctor, but super blunt. And she said, "Tom, we got to move your bowels." I said, "Doc, what? Like what?" And long story short is my bowels didn't work. And we had to do things that weren't exactly the way it was before. And so where I was at that point, it brought my whole entire world and it crashed it. It wasn't the fact of, I had these grand notions just 4 days after this. I'm going to be walking on stage with Oprah. I'm going to be this success. I'm going to be this incredible person. If I'm in a wheelchair, I'll do a backflip type thing. But on the day 5, man, it just showed that I am completely stripped of all independence. There was no walking on stage with Oprah. There was none of that. I needed to gain back my independence. And I went to bed that night and kind of woke up in the morning, and this quote popped into my head. I don't know if you ever heard it, but J.K. Rowling's the award-winning author of the Harry Potter books.
Yes.
She said rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. And that quote became my mantra. And I took that into rehab, spent the next 4 months in rehab, just working on trying to get a finger to move and touch, working on combing my hair efficient, working on getting dressed, putting socks on, doing all these things. But the biggest thing is gaining back my independence. And every single day with these little goals, every morning I'd wake up and give myself a little goal. It wasn't the walk. It wasn't anything. It was literally, let's try and pinch the fingers together. Let's try and sit up and be able to hold myself up for more than 10 seconds. Let's try and eat by myself. But those little goals continually, every single day, just kept adding up and adding up and adding up. And and I spent the next 4 months kind of in that inpatient, and then moved into an outpatient facility.
Wow. I tell you, the perseverance that has to happen, the resilience that you have to be able to overcome it. But the thing is, I'm sure, and you and I talked about this, is you had a team of people, and you talked about your doctor there, and I'm sure therapists and things that you've always done with strength conditioning that you've shared with other people. Now you were the recipient of that. How important did that team become in your recovery?
Yeah, team's everything. I've always believed that nothing great, nothing excellent, nothing at the highest level has ever been done by yourself. I don't care who it is and what it is. So I've always believed in team. Even in that opening statement that we said, relationships for me are the foundation. Building relationships are the foundation of how you create a team. And just those 4 days after, I felt the power and the impact of what a team is all about, because family, friends, doctors, nurses, all these people came in and they created that environment of optimism. And the biggest thing is they created hope for me. They created this idea that you just work your butt off and you're going to get to where you need to go. And the idea of having that team surrounding me is something that I guess I really can't even put into words, because it's everything. It's how I thrive. Even today, having the people, the coworkers that I have, they not only give me energy, they keep me in check. I see one thing, they see another blind spot out of my side, and then they keep me in check. And that's how we thrive. That's how we continue to keep getting better. You surround yourself with people to pick you up, but when you get a little too high, maybe they pull you back down and give you a little bit of a different view. But it's that team that surrounds me that not only helps me with paralysis, but it helps me professionally. It helps me within my emotional roller coaster of life as far as how everything flows. Team is something that I could talk about for hours and hours, because it's so foundational to anything great.
Yeah. And I think that becomes the real key, is realizing that we have to have others that's supporting us, because it doesn't matter what your outlook in life is. And I'm a very positive person, but I need those people that keep me some grounded. I got to go to Ames, Iowa this week and speak. And then, you're pretty excited. And then you take a 5-hour drive home and you realize when you walk back in the house, you're still just dad. Yep. And your husband, and you have responsibilities that's there. And we each have those challenges to be able to really have that team that makes us a better person. And that's the key. I mean, I've heard the saying of who's the 5 professional and personal relationships that you're closest to, and how big a difference they make for you. And the people that you choose there, that's who you become more like. So the challenge is, if you choose bad, of course, you're not going to be the type of person you can be. And sometimes we have to make a tough call and tell someone, hey, I need you to either change, or, our relationship needs to change, because then you distance yourself with them. And that seems harsh, but what you're doing is you're not only helping yourself, you're helping them too. And I think that becomes the real key.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I am a better person with a great team around me, but I know when someone kind of is within that team that might not be giving me, that positivity, or just maybe that good constructive criticism, whatever it may be, there's a clear difference on who I am as a person when someone that's in that team shouldn't be in that team.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how you push yourself, because of course, early on with your athletic training, you were the type that you pushed the limits. Because doing 72-hour races and triathlons, those are people that you kind of push past that. And of course, you have a very strong mindset to be able to do it. But I think your story really fits with anyone that wants to achieve something, but they really think they can't. And it's really about getting out of your comfort zone and going to that discomfort zone, I think you call it, that's there. Because what happens? The most of us stay in comfort zone most of our life. And there's times it's great to be in comfort zone, but life is meant to be lived, not stay where you're comfortable. And I think let's talk a little bit about how do you push yourself past that discomfort zone that can help others really realize it in themselves, that they have that capability.
Yeah, it's that discomfort zone. I just love that. That discomfort zone, why do we want to be there? Because we find our best self. We find who we really are and how powerful we actually are. And so for me, pushing that discomfort zone has always been something that I did not even, I don't even know if I was aware of it when I was, it was what was instilled in me from an athletic position, from even educational wise. I put myself in. Quite frankly, I didn't want to go to college. But I was pushed into that direction, but that direction was hard for me. And that was hard to study and get those grades, but it made me a much better person. And for me now, it's the same thing. I actively got to put myself into these situations that are uncomfortable. Quite frankly, got into the world of speaking. I never thought I'd be up in front of 1,000 people speaking. And Gary, between us and all the listeners, I'm not real excited about that all the time. I mean, the nerves are in my belly, everything. But when I leave that stage and I get to talk to people and I can get to interact and I find out what my story does, man, it's all worth it and it makes me grow. It's within that discomfort that I got to thrive or I got to kind of not, but it allows me to do that. So now my life is daily. I mean, the challenges are endless from the idea of paralysis, because life is a lot harder. Life is a lot more challenging. There's a lot more obstacles in the way. But what that does is it allows me a lot more opportunities. When there's adversity, when there's struggles, when there's those obstacles, it allows me a lot more opportunities to get out there and better myself and continue to keep going. And then I refer back to my, for our athletes in here, we always say, we're like, we'll get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's the nature of the game, But why do we do that? Well, it's preparing them. It's preparing them for competition, but it's not just preparing them for competition. It prepares them to hit a level that they're comfortable in competition, and then they're able to thrive. And I say that same thing about what my accident is I pushed my discomfort. I did all that stuff, and then my accident happened, and it didn't allow me to be comfortable in that accident. It allowed me to kind of take the steps needed to thrive. And I think that's how it is for so many people. Paralysis is an extreme, but getting fired from a job or even just getting, a bad grade in school, all these things are tough things. And it's all that perspective that's going to allow you to either sink or swim. But by putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations beforehand, it makes a big difference. And I'd say is like, we're not training to be Division I athletes, no doubt. We don't need to do that. But when was the last time you learned a different language or when, learn an instrument? One of the things I do it as a daily reminder. And still to this day, I don't find any comfort in it. At the end of my shower in the morning, I turn it to ice cold and I have to make it a minimum of a minute in there. But some days it's 2 to 3 minutes. And now I have guys at work that are telling me, what's the physiological response and the anti-inflammation, all this. No. You know what it is? It sucks and it's hard and I don't want to do it. And I've been doing it for over 2 years and I hate it just as much as I did 2 years ago. But it serves as a reminder. It serves as a reminder to continue to keep pushing through discomfort because it allows me to take some of the obstacles that have happened in my life and to maybe see them in a better light and use them as an opportunity to grow.
Yeah. Well, you said a big statement there of lots of things, but the one that I really hung on to that I want the Chargers to hear is our struggles and our challenges can become our opportunities. When we're in that, we have to realize that we can learn from it. We can grow from it. That is when really something forward comes forward from us, because it comes from within. We start to make that change, and it starts to come from others. It's really there, and understanding that discomfort zone that's there. So I think that's so important to realize. I'm a big guy. I've always said, when you get in comfort zone, you're going backwards. It's not pushing you forward. And, I've always been in business and owned a business. And I would tell my team every year, it didn't matter what happened, it was okay. Next year, now we've got to strive for more. And I had a team member ask me one time and said, well, you always want more. And I said, don't you want more out of life? It's about that next stage. What can we do? What can we achieve? And it doesn't matter what age you are. I don't care if you're 20 and listening to the podcast or if you're 60 or 70. I was just at this speaking engagement, and I talked to several volunteers that they're now volunteering, helping other people. And what it's doing, it's keeping them alive. And the one gentleman said, I've never done this kind of work, but it really makes a difference. And I think that's the key. How can you get past that and create that discomfort zone as you talk about?
Oh, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about that can attitude and what that means to you, because I'm a big attitude guy too, because that's how our mindset, how we change things, how we make them happen. But what does the can attitude mean to you?
See, the can attitude is everything. It's my mindset that I wake up with in the morning. It's the mindset I say before any race. It's as simple as saying, I can do this. I can. And the only reason I love it so much is because I hate the opposite word of it. I can't is the word that within these walls of Indiana University, within this weight room, that is the biggest no-no you never say, because I can't does not exist. And so my mindset, my attitude is fueled by that, by can. I can. Can is that fuel. It's that optimism. It creates hope. And that is the energy I need to really conquer and do almost anything. And I have a short story, but, for me to come back to work, I needed to, kind of build this mindset, this attitude geared around can, because remind you, I'm a strength coach and I'm doing all this. I'm teaching people how to run, move, lift, and I'm in a wheelchair. I mean, I think we could agree that's a bit crazy. I mean, and so I needed to build this attitude up of can. And I came back to work a year after this accident. And, that morning I woke up and I was nervous. I was scared. I questioned it. I didn't want to do it. But I did want to do it. It was back and I said, I can do this. But quickly I come into work, realize I forgot some of my car. On my way out to my car, I end up flipping out of the chair and I'm laying on the ground in front of the football stadium. And now this whole entire time up to this point, I just didn't want to be seen different. I wanted to be seen as a coach. Now I'm laying on the ground in front of the football stadium and the entire baseball team is walking in. They yell over to me, ask if I need help. I quickly say, sure, I'll take some help. They come over to grab me. They throw me back in a chair and then head back downstairs. But I sat there looking at, do I just get my car and go home? Is this a little too much for me? Maybe a strength coach shouldn't be, or a guy in a wheelchair shouldn't be a strength coach, or should I go and do this? And I just sat there, and the only thing that that held on to me was, you said you can. I can. And I ended up going back downstairs and training those teams. And I did it, man. I ended up gaining back my job. I ended up gaining back all of the stuff that I wanted in life. And it all becomes this mindset of saying, I can do this. I can do this. And even when you fail, even when you fall out of your wheelchair or you get knocked down, if you just keep saying, I can, you'll be able to gain it back. You'll be able to do anything.
And it's those thoughts and words that allow you can. What is your struggle right now, Chargers, that you had? You can do it. Put those thoughts, put those words in, and you can move forward with that each and every day. Tom, before we go to the recharge round, I have one more question. And I didn't tell you I was going to ask this one, but I think I've got to ask it. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay, if you could go back in time before that accident and it not happened, would you do it now with what you know now?
Yes. So that's a funny thing, because I have a lot of friends that are in chairs now. Some it's changed their life. Some it's just, they would never change it. I'm going to be honest without hesitation. I'm going back. I'm going back because this is the way I see it is I was a young, arrogant guy, but I had a big heart. And I lived this life before. I wanted people to push their discomfort. I didn't think there was excuses that anybody could ever make. But as a guy, 32-year-old man that's 6 foot, in shape, doing all this stuff, having the world. Everybody looked at me and is like, well, you don't have the excuses I do. You don't have all these things. So I lived this life before, but I like to say, man, the wheelchair has given me the idea, this new identity that says, what is your excuse now? What is your excuse? Because I'm still doing what I did. I'm just going to do it a little bit differently. And so that's been my mindset. It's been strong. It's been who I am. But if I could go back to being upright again, I would change a little bit of stuff, but I think I could grow to where I am now, even if I was upright.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that. And I think that's important for people to see, but we have to decide to move forward. And that's one thing you've done. And that's one thing I really honor you for, is that you've decided to move forward. And it's not easy. And folks, your life is going to be like that at times. So what can you do to move forward? Let's jump into the recharge round. I ask every guest the same kind of 6 questions because they kind of fit with a framework that I speak about every day. And that first one, we've talked a little bit about it, but share with me why you believe your mindset is so important in life.
Yeah, I think a foundation of everything is your mindset, the way you view things, the way you see perspective on there. We talked about it just briefly, is that can attitude. That's the mindset that fuels me. That is the mindset that makes me want to keep achieving. And then that mindset promotes growth. It promotes me impacting others. It promotes me literally having no barriers, coming back to saying anything's possible. That can attitude is the mindset that fuels me with it.
Great. How do you bring energy? And I'll take it to the aspect of, we all have days that our energy level's a little low, but those days you don't feel you have the energy. I know you get it by your cold shower for a minute to 2 minutes, because that actually does something to the body. I understand that part of it. But what else do you do to kind of bring that energy on maybe days that you just don't have it?
I have a couple different things, but I'm big into having a gratitude journal. I think getting up and, I like to call it, and I think it ties into your show perfect, but I check my batteries. I check my batteries to see where I'm at. But that gratitude journal always brings me back to that optimism and what I'm grateful for. And the only thing I say is, I can't always say my wife, I can't always say my dog, and I can't say coffee all the time. So I have to really look into it, but it charges me. I got into meditation. Meditation is unbelievable. I have no clue if I'm doing it right or not, but I know the feeling that I have is so spot on, and I need it now. And then I finish with a little yoga. And those 3 things charge me up. These 3 things get me going. And in a worst case scenario, which does happen, if I'm just real down, man, I have a very symbolic thing in my wedding ring that I realize, this isn't just about me. This is bigger than me. Get your butt up, get yourself out there and make that impact, because this is about my wife. This is about my family. And I think sometimes you need that symbolic thing to kind of keep it real.
Excellent. And what he's talking about is putting the charge into life. We all have those challenges that's there where we don't have the energy, but you have the capability to do it. Love that answer. Share the number one connection that's made the biggest impact in your life.
No doubt is my wife, Krista. My wife, Krista, and I, we've been together since high school, high school sweethearts. We've grown together. We've seen it. And the truth is, at this point, we're 2 of the same people, but polar opposites in so many different views. And that's what feeds into a great team. I think she sees a lot of my blind spots. I see a lot of hers, but she has impacted me in ways to teach me love, to just incredibly be, not only humble, but just have this gratitude for life. And there's that answer is so easy, because she is that person.
Well, I can't wait to meet her, and I know I will get to soon one day, because we're going to meet up. We've talked about that, so I can't wait to meet her. What advice has influenced you the most in your life?
I was told this as a young man. Had a men's basketball coach that said he was a big John Wooden fan, and he said, that quote that John Wooden said about a test of a true man's character is done when no one is looking, and I think that advice, that quote, is the thing that I live my life by. How I conduct myself in front of people or behind these closed doors are the same. If I'm with the athletic director at Indiana University or 12-year-old youth kids or whatever, I'm the same person no matter who it is, and that has allowed me to continue to build a character that's admirable and impactful for so many.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. How about a book that you love? Share why you love it.
I would have to go with Obstacle is the Way. It's said by Ryan, or it's written by Ryan Holiday. And I'd say that if I had a book, that would be the book. Like that would be the book that I would write, because it's all about seeing adversity as an opportunity. It's all about seeing the obstacle and going, that is the way. And I think that's the mindset that we maybe aren't comfortable with, but it needs to be. I mean, for anything great, you got to have a little friction in there.
Oh, great. I'm going to have to check that one out. I have not read that one. Well, you've made it almost to the gauntlet. So the last question for you is, and I know this has been as tough as some of those 72-hour races that you've done, but the last question is, if you had to define your legacy in one sentence, what would it be?
Yeah, I like to maybe say just one word, but limitless. I really believe anything is possible. I believe as long as you start something and never ever quit, you could obtain anything. It's just that mindset of continually moving forward.
Well, Tom Morris, you have made a difference today to our listeners and to our Chargers, and I can't thank you enough for saying yes and joining the podcast and getting to know you. I'm enjoying it even more. That's why I love doing podcasts. As I told you when we were speaking, I said, I get you on a podcast, I'll even know you more. So I can't wait till we get to meet in person to be able to really share that moment. But thank you for being a difference maker in your community, in our world. And the thing is, this goes throughout a lot of different, I've got 50 different countries that have listened to the podcast. So you're impacting a larger audience. And today you have limitless really made a difference in people's lives. And I can't thank you enough, Tom.
Well, thank you so much. This has been incredible. And get out there, keep pushing yourself, and just make today better than yesterday.
Now, if they want to check you out or be able to find some information on you, how could they reach out, Tom?
So I'm at Tom Morris Performance on Instagram, Facebook, tommorrisperformance.com as far as website. So all of that. I'm pretty active on social media, and all my information is on my website.
So please check him out. We'll have the details in the show notes under chargepodcast.com. If you're running right now or if you're driving, don't try to write it down as you're driving. We'll have all that information in show notes and available to you. Tom Morris, we can't thank you enough. And Chargers, if you're not charged up, they're ready to get out there and get it today, I don't know. We're going to have to take your heartbeat and see what's the problem, because I think Tom gave his reason that those obstacles do not limit us. Instead, we limit ourselves. What can we do each day to move forward, to become better, and overcome the challenges that we have each and every day? Chargers, I can't wait to have another guest for you next week. So come on back and watch again and listen to our podcast. And I will see you back here next week. Go out each and every day and make it a great day. Talk to you next week.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.